liberties, the removal of innovatory taxation, or the abuse of time-honoured custom. These were the things that were more important than the violent overthrow of the established order. That's not to say that they weren't violent. It's been argued that many of the rituals of violence associated with these rebellions are, in effect, attempts by rioters and rebels to re-establish what they perceive to be the moral order of society, which had been disturbed by innovative forces. Ritual violence was used in a manner which mimicked official violence in the attempt to restore a situation which had got out of kilter. Some rebels acted out official roles when they perceived that the authorities were not acting to rectify disturbances to the social order by ritually humiliating those they identified as transgressors. In doing so, they believed themselves to be acting legitimately, that is, in the way which would be approved of by the monarch were he aware of the true situation. Resistance to innovation then is a feature of early modern Europe, both amongst the ruling elite, anxious to guard against possible loss of political control by the centralising monarchies, and amongst the peasants resisting increased taxation. Both groups, or both classes, engaged in rebellion. The rebels have been typified as being obsessed by renovation and also looking forlornly back to a lost golden age rather than forward to a better life. In a society not yet affected by Enlightenment ideas of progress, that is, the possibility of conscious social improvement, rebellions could only be justified by appeals to certain guiding myths which rebels used to explain their actions, both to themselves and to authority. Two powerful myths concern the nature of the king's actions. Firstly, it was held that the king was unaware of the results of his actions The king was unaware of the results of the actions being taken on his behalf by his ministers and their officials. In this case, rebellion, even the taking up of arms, was justified as a means of bringing grievance to his attention. Rebel manifestos and declarations almost invariably emphasise that they are not a threat to his rule. It's a case of down with this taxation, but long live the king. In such cases, good government was the hope for outcome, not a major restructuring of society. Secondly, there was the myth of the king deceived and robbed by his tax gatherers. With this myth, the rebels justified their rebellion with the belief that the king could manage the affairs of state on the income raised by earlier levels of taxation. The new taxes, it was believed, simply went into the pockets of the tax gatherers and were never seen by the king, who was unaware of what was going on. Once aware, the monarch would return things to the way they once were. Rebellious peasants invariably assured the monarch that they were reluctant to take up arms in pursuit of their grievances. As the general of the commune of Perigord, one of the leaders of a Crocons rebellions, a man named La Mothe La Forest, concluded in one of his decrees that he was, quote, the most humble, obedient and loyal servant of the king. So resistance and rebellion at this period of history wasn't directed against the institutional monarchy, but to bad government. Bad government being the levying of taxes which lacked the sanction of custom. In these myths, we can see the desire of society to keep things as they were, or as they were thought to have been in a supposed golden age, which would be regained by a just monarch. And it's not until we reach the age of the French Revolution where you have a nascent nationalism welded to ideas of complete change, which we can call possibly the development of ideology. Have you had enough comments, or shall I go on to...
More.
More? More? Okay, well, let's have a look at one of the longest lasting rebellions of early modern Europe, one that came very close to achieving its objective. And it's the outbreak of rebellion in southwestern France that occurred in the years 1636 and 1637, and sporadically thereafter for a number of years. It was the revolt of the croquants. The croquant was a slang term for armed yokels, disparaging term which, as is often the case, was taken up and used with pride by those concerned. This outbreak occurred in the period 1636-37, with disturbances continuing to the end of the reign of Louis XIII in 1641. It's been likened to a grass fire. Whatever the authorities did to stamp it out in one area led it to it flaring up in another. The King's Minister, Cardinal Richelieu, had decided to involve France in the 30 Years' War that had been raging in Germany and Austria since 1618. The war, of course, means increased taxation, with a new effort now to create a centralised tax system. Opposition and resentment to this effort quickly emerged. In 1628, there had been riots against the creation of customs offices